welcome into week 2 version of BSP Sunday Morning Fantasy. I am your co-host Ryan Stern. Joined with me, as always, Marthani Sanders. We are from backsportspage.com. Make sure you're checking out all the great stuff that's going up on the site. Follow Backsportspage on all social media at Backsportspage. Marthani is on Twitter at IM_M_Sanders_. I am at rstern33 on Twitter. And we'll open up with what we were just talking about right before the show. And there was a lot of hustle and bustle being made about someone who placed a $7 bet on DraftKings last night on a 23-leg parlay for college football. And he hits the first 21. Going into the night games, all he needs is Texas A&M to cover 6.5 and Washington, Michigan State to go over 55.5. And I guess he was trying to cash out for over $130,000. And yeah, he ends up hitting the over $1 million bet. I mean, that's just something that it brings the whole community together.
Yeah, it was insane because even if you're not like a big avid college football person or just watching a big fan of college football, just the fact that you can see that this is going on at that moment, literally just a $7 bet going into possibly a million, and then there's the drama of him actually trying to cash it out beforehand. Because at that point he's got six figures, so I mean, I think anybody would be satisfied with 130 something thousand.
Yeah,
To
especially
cap
on a
off on a $7.
bet.
Yeah, on a $7 bet, you would take it. And then the fact that it just so happened to work out in his favor that it's an issue with him trying to cash out, and then the game prolongs, and somehow
we
that
were
second
saying,
half.
yeah, we were saying the first half of that Washington Michigan State game was not going his way. And it was really towards the end of the second quarter that that the game started to open up a little bit. And I mean, first of all, how about Washington with the big upset
Right.
of Michigan State? That's I guess that's on the back burner when we're talking about this sort of bet. But I mean, Washington just coming out and absolutely stunning the 11th ranked Michigan State Spartans. Just continuing the trend of unranked teams going in and beating ranked teams so far. And I mean, we almost had the biggest one with Texas and Alabama last week, but there really seems to be a lot more parity in college football this year.
Oh, definitely. I think obviously the biggest thing on it, I know a lot of people don't like it, but the transfer portal is kind of one of the main reasons for it. Just the fact that now everybody's kind of not clogged up with one talented, I mean, Alabama, there's your big, Alabama's, Georgia's, Ohio State. They're still getting their guys, and they're just reloading instead of rebuilding. But everywhere else is definitely parity now in college football, and it's back, and especially for the Pac-12. I think that was great for them because they get left out of a lot of the conversation of everything, just because it's been a while since they had anybody to really just represent them. I mean, we know what USC has, but that's a lot of guys from the transfer portal. So
right.
that's helping. But Washington got a big win. Oregon got a big win against a very good BYU team who just defeated Baylor last week.
And they handled them pretty easily too.
Yeah. So the Pac-12 got some pretty good wins last week, and I mean, not even just like your Power 5 schools, the Group of 5 schools. The Sun Belt is probably the best Group of 5 conference.
I mean, how about that? How about that? The ending to that Troy Appalachian State game,
right?
I mean, what was Troy doing with? Oh my God, that they were up 4. They're trying to run the clock out. They decide to take a safety, and then that miracle Hail Mary. I mean, good Lord, they had that game in the palm of their hands, and they literally gave it away.
I was happy with the safety though, because at that point it hit the over, and that's what I needed. So I was fine with it. But after that, I was like the squib kick, and I'm like, they still have it. You gave them literally a chance instead of just running the clock out, and and I don't know. I
I
thought it
don't know
was
if I've ever
crazy.
seen a tip ball at the 7-yard line on a Hail Mary end up in the end zone for a touchdown. And the one part of that play that not enough people are going to look at, and I don't know his name, but number 2 on Appalachian State, one of the receivers. After the ball gets caught, it looks like the defender has a route to the
Yeah,
ball carrier to drive him out
yeah,
of bounds, and he puts a great block to seal that corner, seal the edge, and allow him to get into the end zone. I mean that was just, I mean, that's part of what makes football amazing. It just
right.
that sort of ending, that sort of game. But yeah, and you talking about the Pac-12, and boy, USC looks really dangerous.
They do. They do. I don't. They if they can keep it up and not have any hiccups, they could definitely play themselves right into when it's time for those playoff rankings to start coming here in the next couple weeks or so. They could be right there in the thick of it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get into the week 2 NFL fantasy football. We've also got our best bets, which we will open up with as we always do. If you have any lineup questions, send them in. Whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, send them in the comments, or tweet them to us. We will answer all of the questions that you guys have live on air. But as I said, we will open up with our best bet segment. And boy, last week would have been awesome, except for those damn Colts. I mean, what they screwed a lot of people. Not
A
just
lot of people.
not just people on the making regular wagers, but survivor pools went to the toilet last week because of Indianapolis.
Yeah, that was awful. Literally, they were one. I had them on a leg, and they were literally the only leg that didn't pull through. Like literally,
Yeah,
everything else
same
was.
same for me.
That's it.
All right, so we're gonna make sure that we avoid the Indianapolises of this week, and I happen to love all 4 of our best bets for this week. So what do you got for your first one?
My first best bet, I'm going to the Washington Commanders and Detroit Lions game. The line there over unders at 48.5. Uh, both offenses actually looked pretty good last week. It took Detroit a while to get going, but it seems like that's their thing. And then obviously the defense is not that great in Detroit, which we talked about that last week. And then, like I said, Washington, their receiving core that they have, young, healthy. As long as Carson Wentz doesn't do any Carson Wentz things, I think that over can get hit at over 48.5, and they should probably go ahead and hit that 49. That should be an easy smash for the over to me.
I love the over in this game, and one of my buddies that I work with, we always have a chat midweek about about our best bets, and he said to me, he goes, "There's one game that I'm not so sure of, and it's Washington Detroit." I go, "Smash the over,
Over,
smash the
smash
over."
it.
I mean, Washington, you expect to have this stingy defense. They're not the defense that they were 2-3 years ago. They're
Yeah.
still without Chase Young. The Lions, and I know we're going to talk. Actually, I have in my studs and sleepers pieces of this game. So yeah, I absolutely love the over in this one. The My first best bet, I'm also going with another over, and that's the Arizona Cardinals and Las Vegas Raiders. I have to credit Andy Holloway from the Fantasy Footballers. Um, so they're based out in Arizona, so they have a little bit more insight to the Cardinals. And during one of their shows this week, they're talking about this game, and he refers to the Arizona Cardinals secondary as a tertiary. Uh, and it's fine. Not saying that Patrick Mahomes isn't great, but you see what a good, an above average defense can do to Patrick Mahomes. They're especially with the weapons, still learning. He put up over 340 yards and 5 touchdowns last week. This is a Raiders offense that I think is going to have their absolute way. We're going to talk a lot about this game as we get into the show. Uh, there's just, and both defenses aren't great. I think both offenses are going to have a chance to move the ball. There is one uh, player that I like that I didn't mention in any of my picks for the week, but watch out for Greg Dortch. I think he's gonna sneaky have a big game out there for the Cardinals. Uh, Hollywood Brown, I think, is in line for a big game too. You always like it when the head coach comes out and says, "We need to get so and so the ball more often."
Right.
And that's what Kingsbury said about Hollywood Brown this week. So I can see this going over 60. So at 50, I think it's 51 and a half. It's a smash over for me.
Yeah, I think last week, obviously the Raiders were still trying to get everything involved together. Still was the first game, but going against this Cardinals defense, they definitely should be way more improved than they were last week. Derek Carr should definitely is going to limit the turnovers. I don't think he'll turn it over as much as he did last week either.
All right. Your second best bet, what'd you got?
My second best bet is in one of the later evening or afternoon games, evening games or late games, if you want, whatever you want to call them. The Bengals and Cowboys. I think the line that they have right now is 7.5
Seven and a
for
half is what I
Cincy.
saw this morning. Yeah.
I mean, we saw how the Cowboys looked last week in prime time. There's no Dak, so I don't know how CD is really going to get involved with Cooper Rush. And if Tampa could have easily put up way more than 19 than what they had last week, but obviously, they had their struggles. I don't think that Joe Burrow struggles like he did last week
No.
either. Jamar Chase should have a good game. I believe I'm not sure if he is or isn't yet. I haven't checked the last time I checked. I think he was still good to go. Maybe T. Higgins might play,
T.
might not.
Higgins, last I heard, was expected to play today. So.
Okay. I mean, but it's a plethora of weapons, which we're gonna get to some of those guys later on in the show. But
Yep.
uh, they should definitely get that touchdown on the hook. I mean, I probably might even go at least 10 if you want to take an alternative spread. I'll
Yeah,
probably at least go 10 on it.
absolutely. I don't mind taking the alternative spread, buying, selling some points and
Yeah,
getting better odds on that. Definitely something I'm looking into because I can see this easily being a double digit game.
yeah.
And my second best bet of the week is the Steelers getting 3 points at home against the Patriots. And yeah, I know TJ Watt is out, blah, blah, blah. This is still a Steelers defense that even after TJ Watt went out, they were able, hey, we got a guest host. There we go. After TJ Watt went out last week, they were still able to put pressure on Joe Burrow. They were able to handle some of what the Cincinnati offense was trying to give them. The Patriots offense is nowhere close to being as dynamic or explosive as the Bengals can be. And we saw plays being made up and down that defensive lineup. We saw Minka Fitzpatrick just have one of the absolute best games you're ever going to see from a safety. I know I have him in an IDP league, and he put up like 29 points or something, 26 points
Man,
from a defensive player. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that. I think that they're going to be able to put some pressure on Mac Jones, and they're coming home. They just beat the Cincinnati Bengals, who are one of the maybe the second or third favorite in the AFC this year. They go and they beat them, and now they're at home and they're giving 3 points. I think that Vegas is putting a little too much into the TJ Watt injury, and I would even be comfortable laying 3 points, let alone getting 3 points from the Steelers this week.
When I saw that, I was shocked. I was like,
Yeah.
wait,
I looked back
what?
because at first I thought I read -3, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, that just said +3. So
I
yeah,
couldn't I couldn't believe that one either. I was like, did they not see what we saw
right,
last week
exactly.
from okay,
And
we'll hammer it down.
Najee Harris is healthy. I know there was a little bit of a scare earlier on in the week, or even at the end of the game last week against Cincinnati. Najee Harris is going to be healthy. Jalen Warren, I think, is a more than capable backup as well. He's someone that I think all Najee Harris owners should be looking to stash if he is available, because I think that we've seen Pittsburgh rely on one guy. So if Najee is to miss any time, we're going to see a huge workload for Jalen Warren. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something Najee Harris owners should be looking to do. All right. Again, if you have any questions, tweet them to us. Leave them in the comments. We will answer your lineup questions live on air. But right now, we will get into studs, duds, and sleepers. We're going to open, as always, with our studs of the week, and we'll start off at the quarterback position.
My stuff for this week, actually, just got done mentioning him, Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
I just think, even with the poor performance he had as far as turning over the ball, I mean, he still put up a good amount of points for you last week as well. And then now going against this Cowboys defense, and the weapons he has, like I say, everybody's going to be at full strength now. There's just no way that he's going to have a performance like he had last week again this week against Dallas. I think this is an easy one that you go with Joe Burrow as a stud.
And it's crazy because even with 4 interceptions and a fumble last week, Joe Burrow didn't kill you.
Yeah.
he still put up decent enough numbers that he wasn't going to lose you the week in fantasy football. He was, and that's because he still was able to put up yards and that. Oh, as a Jamar Chase owner in my most. I don't know what happened there. As a Jamar Chase owner in my most important league, I'm sitting there and I'm actually talking on the phone with the guy, one of my best friends of all time. We're sitting there, we're talking, and I'm facing him in week 1, and Jamar Chase obviously scores a touchdown. They mark him short of the end zone, and the Bengals don't challenge, and they end up not even getting into the end zone. I know Chase was able to score a little bit later on, but my goodness, what an absolute game that could have been. Yeah, Joe Burrow is an absolute stud this week.
It was wild because I was facing someone last week and they had Joe Burrow and they still won. So I'm like, God.
Oh, I don't. Are you having? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, because I can't hear you. Let's see. Hold on. Setting audio. Okay. I think I figured it out. All right, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
All right, let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh. All right. I think we got this now.
Is that? I hope so.
No,
I can
because I
still hear
still
you.
can't. I still can't hear you. All right. Well, let's see what we can do. Let me see. Let's do it. All right. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
No. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's my stud quarterback of the week. We're gonna go with Derek Carr. We mentioned it earlier that I'm expecting a lot of points in this game. I think we're going to see and I'm going to talk a little bit more about another piece in just a few minutes. Derek Carr is going up against quite possibly the worst secondary in the league right now. Um, I just think, especially on in DFS, Derek Carr right now is somewhere around, and I know that things are a little bit different because we have four teams playing on Monday night. So if you're only playing the main slate, you're going to be without guys like Jalen Hurts. You're going to be without Josh Allen. You're going to be without Kirk Cousins. And no one cares about Ryan Tannehill. Uh, but this is going. I really do think that this is going to be a week that you're going to want to start Derek Carr, and on DFS you're going to get some savings all the while. All right, let's go into running backs.
My stud this week for running back, he doesn't play today. It'll be on Monday. It'll be tomorrow. But I'm going with Miles Sanders, just because the productivity that he had last week was pretty good. Obviously, most fantasy owners would love for him to continue that because the main issue for him is always just being on the field and being healthy. Um, Minnesota did a pretty good job last week. Pretty much with the running backs from Green Bay. Even though I think AJ Dillon did score a touchdown, but they're playing a more complete offense this week. Green Bay didn't have any wide receivers for them to help it. Even still, Christian Watson got open for a surefire touchdown, just dropped it. So
And
it's definitely still some stuff to work
Aaron
out on.
Rodgers wasn't pissed off about that or anything.
But I think Miles Sanders can have another good week this week against Minnesota.
Yeah, I know Miles. There was a lot of questions about Miles Sanders going into the season. What was his workload going to be like? Are we going to see Kenneth Gainwell earlier in the season? I still think that Gainwell is good enough to take over. Should we see a fall off in Miles Sanders' play? Uh, but this is a Green Bay defense that I think a lot of people thought were going to be one of the better groups in the league. I don't think anyone is necessarily scared of this Green Bay defense. Jair Alexander looks like he may have lost a step, but then again, he did have to deal with Justin Jefferson, who just, especially in the first half, just absolutely went off. But Miles Sanders, I think right now he's going to receive a large enough workload that he's going to his floor is going to be really really high this week. All right, I am going to go with my stud running back of the week, and it's going to be Antonio Gibson for the Washington Commanders. Again, we said how much we like the over in this game. And there was, again, just like Miles Sanders, there was a lot of questions about what Antonio Gibson's workload was going to be like in this Washington offense. And then the unfortunate incident with Brian Robinson sort of made it necessary for Antonio Gibson to be the full workload manager there. And the run defense for the Detroit Lions was almost non-existent last week. We saw the Eagles just have their way on the ground. And I just think that the workload is going to be there. So I really do like Antonio Gibson as a stud play for me this week. All right. Wide receivers. Who you got?
My stud wide receiver this week, once again, going back to the Washington Detroit game, Aroma St. Brown.
Hmm.
Obviously, I think he's had at least, I want to say at least 15 points in a PPR league for like the last 5 or 7 straight games, and at
Yep.
least 20 the last 5 games. So obviously, it seems like that he is like the guy or the number one wide receiver there in Detroit. Not necessarily just because of who was left off from last season. There's obviously some type of rapport there between him and Jared Goff. Like I said, just expecting to shoot out in that one. So I think he'll have another good week.
Yeah, I'm on Ross St. Brown, and I wish I could remember the stat, but he was the first player in NFL history to have, I think it was 7 catches for 80 yards in 7 straight games or
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, his utilization in that offense. Um, I mean, we've there's a clear connection with him and Goff, and we're going to even talk about another piece of this passing game a little bit later on. My stud wide receiver is more because of DFS, because nobody's sitting Devonte Adams in their season-long league. Devonte Adams on both FanDuel and DraftKings is the number 2 priced wide receiver this week. I don't care. I have Devonte Adams in every single one of my lineups. Um, we obviously saw last week that it there was no really missed time between Derek Carr and Devonte Adams from their time at Fresno State. This is and they're going up against, like I said, maybe the worst secondary in the league. Devonte Adams, I'm expecting. I mean, I would project 7 for 120 and a touchdown minimum. That's like a floor for Devonte Adams this week. 7 for 120 and a touchdown. I mean, it's just he's going to just absolute go off. We're playing Devonte Adams wherever we go. Tight ends, what you got?
My stud tight end this week, once again going to that Raiders Cardinals game. I'm going with Zach Ertz. I know last week he was dealing with a calf injury, so he wasn't 100% healthy. He had a full week of practice this week.
He still managed
Obviously,
to get into the end zone last week too.
yeah, still managed to get into the end zone. Obviously, we know that there's no DeAndre Hopkins there right now. I believe Rondell Moore is not being able to play today. I think he's
Yep.
dealing with a
Yeah,
hamstring injury,
he's
so
still
he's
out.
out. So the targets is definitely going to be there for Zach Ertz to try to get involved in the passing game with Kyler Murray. So I think this week he'll have a pretty good week and might maybe can find a chance to get into the end zone again like he did last week.
Yeah, we saw Gerald Everett go off against this Raiders defense last week. Again, I see there being a lot of points in this game. When there are a lot of points scored, you just want pieces of that game. So,
Right.
yeah, Zach Ertz could very easily be the number 2 target for the Cardinals in a high scoring game. So, definitely like Zach Ertz this week. My tight end stud of the week is going to be Hunter Hurst for the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Cowboys. Uh, the secondary for and again, I don't know exactly how much we're going to see from the passing game for Cincinnati, but I do think that there's a chance that because of what happened last week, they just say, "Eff it, we're going balls to the wall." And the secondary for the Cowboys is pretty decent, which I think is going to open up a lot underneath for guys like uh, a Tyler Boyd or a Hunter Hurst. Hunter Hurst we saw be incredibly uh, crucial to that offense. We saw him get critical targets, even as late as overtime. for the Bengals last week. On DFS, he's really cheap. But yeah, I really do like Hunter Hurst this week. So before we get into our duds, this is a good time to look at our inactives for this week, because there are a lot of big names on this list. We got Michael Pittman out, which
Mm,
kills me because I have him so many
yeah,
places this year.
facts.
Alvin Kamara for the Saints out. Julio Jones for the Bucks out. Chris Godwin for the Bucks out. Um, any other big names that you saw? And I know the Giants were hoping that Kayvon Thibodeau was going to make his debut. That's not going to happen. J.K. Dobbins is out again. I was shocked. I thought he was going to be a go this week when I had made my picks. Um, I still thought that there was a chance Dobbins would play. Uh, Kenyon Drake is now an interesting start for me for the Baltimore Ravens. So if you have any of those guys in your lineup, make sure you get them out. And speaking of out, let's go to our duds. Quarterback duds of the week. Who you got?
My quarterback dud this week. I'm going with Ryan Tannehill. We the last time we saw that Buffalo Bills defense, they were magnificent. I mean,
Yeah,
it's so many words to describe it. The fact that right now the Tennessee doesn't really know or have a true number one wide receiver. Um, the fact that maybe the best wide receiver right now on their team could be a rookie, and it's not Traylon Burks, it was Kyle Phillips. Um, no disrespect to Kyle Phillips, but that's not a good thing. I mean,
no, no, it's
um,
not.
and it's just the fact that I mean, even last year, even though they won against Buffalo last year, Ryan Tannehill didn't have a good game against them either. So it's just the matchup just doesn't bode well for Ryan Tannehill. Um, unless you were like just in a super flex and you had like there's a deep league to where you got to play like two quarterbacks and he's there, then maybe you have to play him. Other than that, I would not touch him, sit him on that bench.
There are wide receivers, especially if it's a PPR league. There are wide receivers that are considered flex options that I would even consider ahead of someone like a Ryan Tannehill. I just don't see it this week. That's a mean defense out there in Buffalo. They're going to eat that offensive line up. I mean, we saw the Giants able to generate a little bit of pressure, and the Giants were able to contain that. Remember, I said last week, I said watch the Giants. I think they're going to sell out to make sure Derrick Henry doesn't beat them. That's what they did. Derrick Henry had a very tough game for Derrick Henry standards. So yeah, yeah. I don't want any part of the Titans offense this week.
Yeah.
Maybe in a really, really, really deep league. I actually do like Traylon Burks for the rest of the season. So if he's
Yeah.
out there on your waiver wire, pick him up, stash him. Don't play him this week.
Yeah.
But I do think that he's going to be the number one guy moving forward. Uh, Boy, what a disappointment! Robert Woods ended up. I mean, they didn't put him on the field as much as they put the two rookies out there, two targets, and I think he caught the first pass of the game from Ryan Tannehill,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got one more target that he didn't catch the rest of the game, and he was just a complete non-factor. Um, I thought Robert Woods was going to be a pretty decent value this year. Right now I don't see that happening because that was a Giant secondary filled with a lot of really young raw players that I'm not sure are ready for the big time, and he just wasn't able to do it. So that was really worrisome for Robert Woods owners. My dud quarterback of the week, and again this is more towards DFS, because it's awfully tough in your season long leagues to bench Lamar Jackson. But we saw last year what Miami did to the Baltimore Ravens, and that was what was the line from Remember the Titans? You blitz all day. And that's what they did to Lamar Jackson. They blitzed him all day. They did not allow him to get comfortable in that pocket. They made him make quick reads and get the ball out quick. And that's not something that Lamar Jackson likes to do. He likes to be able to maneuver the pocket, allow his receivers to get open deep, which is exactly what the Jets allowed him to do last
Right,
week.
right.
Xavier Howard out there with Rashad Bateman is not a matchup that I particularly like for Bateman. So, yeah, I'm gonna stay away from Lamar Jackson, especially in DFS. I just especially when, like I said, when you have someone like a Derek Carr who's going to be so much cheaper than Lamar Jackson this week. Save the money. You're probably going to get more points from Carr anyway, and look elsewhere. Running back, who you got?
Running back Dud, which I was never really a fan of him going into this season, and now it's really kind of starting to show. I know it's still early, but Cam Akers, um, I mean, it seems like right now he's losing the touches to Darrell Henderson.
Yep.
So he didn't do. Obviously, there's this one clip that went viral of the way that he protected or lack thereof of Matthew Stafford there on that one play, and really didn't see a whole bunch of snaps after that. So maybe right now he's just in Sean McVay's doghouse, and he has to find a way to get back on the field. For now, I would say no, don't touch him, just because I think Derrick Henderson is going to keep getting the bulk of the touches and production, which is sad because the Rams should probably rebound this week going against Atlanta. So maybe everybody can kind of have their fair share, but just because of you don't know how often he's gonna touch the football or get on the field right now, I would stay away with Cam Akers, which I know that makes a lot of fantasy owners sad because a lot of people were kind of high on him. I wasn't, just because I don't know, you just never know, but I'm staying away from Cam Akers too.
Yeah, there was just so much value in the wide receivers in the spot that Cam Akers was going in fantasy drafts. I do have 2 shares of Cam Akers, and that's because he just fell.
Right.
I think it was the 6th round for the 2 spots that I have Cam Akers. So, and in one of the leagues, I did handcuff him with Henderson, and I'm playing Henderson over Cam Akers this week in that league. So, in my flex, yeah, Cam Akers, you just cannot have any sort of confidence in Cam Akers this week. And my dud running back, I think, is going to suffer some of the same consequences that we saw uh, from Akers last week, and that was because of the inability to pass protect. That's Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard got beat a lot in pass protection last week. They're going to ask, especially because of the state of that offensive line, where you have rookies and inexperience playing on that left side. Both left tackle, left guard are out for Dallas for the foreseeable future. They're going to ask their running backs and tight ends to help with that left side. And Ezekiel Elliott is just so much better in pass protection than Tony Pollard that I think even in the pure passing situations, we're going to start to see Pollard give way some of those snaps that he was almost guaranteed to Zeke. All right. Wide receivers, what you got?
I'm a dud wide receiver for this week. I'm going with Amari Cooper. Um, and really, obviously, it's not that he's not bad. It's just the fact of the quarterback that he's dealing with
Mhm.
Jacoby Brissett. Um, it's just gonna be it's just so tough. Even though I know they're going against a Jets
Jets.
defense that's that is pretty bad. I mean, he may end up having better numbers than he did last week, but it's just obviously there's the difference between having a possible in Deshaun Watson and then a Jacoby Brissett. So it's just I don't, and I think maybe this would be more so a Kareem Hunt game,
Yep.
maybe so more so than with the wide receivers. So I just think the not necessarily the matchup, just because of I think the running game is going to get off so well that they may not need to pass it as much, and they really probably don't want to just because of them having Brissett in at quarterback. So I don't think Amari Cooper is someone you play this week either.
And we saw last week, Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, doubled the amount of targets that Amari Cooper got. Um, Again, and that could come from the fact that we did see Deshaun Watson on the field during training camp and a little bit in preseason. So there were plenty of times that Jacoby Brissett was running with the twos,
Mm-hmm.
which is sort of where Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, I no, I towards the end of training camp, he really stood out as the number two wide receiver there. But there's been plenty of times that I'm sure Donovan Peoples-Jones ran with the number twos,
Right.
and so I'm sure that there's a lot more familiarity with Jacoby Brissett with Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I think that's why we saw that. Yeah, Amari Cooper, and I mean he's some I don't even know if I have any shares of this year. So um, I wasn't willing to just take a bet on week 13 on from when he gets just not stashing someone for that long. My wide receiver of the week is going to be Brandon Cooks. And Brandon Cooks is someone that I love, especially because he's so necessary to that offense. Um, he's going to see a lot of Patrick Surtain this week against the Broncos. Um, Playing in Denver is never easy.
Right.
That's a loud crowd, and it's funny because I always wanted to know. You always heard that chant whenever something happened with the and then but that incomplete chant that the Broncos fans. I mean that gets in your head, man.
Man.
Yeah, I think his floor is okay, but Brandon Cooks is someone that I may look somewhere else for an upside play. Maybe someone like an Aston Doolin, a Greg Dortch. Those could be upside plays that I think you may want to look towards instead of Brandon Cooks. All right, let's round it out with our dud tight ends of the week. And who you got?
My dud tight end, I'm going with another Cleveland Brown, and that's David Njoku. Once again, of course, just the fact that it's still Jacoby Brissett in at quarterback, but also, I mean, even though the Jets kind of gave up a lot last week still to Baltimore, it wasn't with Mark Andrews
No,
or
it wasn't.
Isaiah Likely. It was the receivers instead of the tight ends. So they kind of held the tight ends pretty much in check. So maybe just more so just a matchup on there. I don't think that Njoku is going to have a good week either. Like once again, like I said, I really think it's going to be a Kareem Hunt game. I just feel like the running backs there for Cleveland is what going to makes the difference in that one. So uh, unless you just have to, depending on how you are with your depth at tight end. If you don't have like anyone else to play, maybe you have no choice but to play him. But other than that, I wouldn't play Njoku.
Yeah, it was so less than 11 points for Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely didn't even log a catch. Um, Again, not saying that it was all because of the Jets, but how much how much offense are we really going to see in this game? Um, this would have been a game that I would have loved to smash an under, but 39. I mean, a defensive score could be the reason why you lose out on that sort of low point total. So when, as much as I would love to bet an under with this game, it's just too low.
Yeah.
My dud tight end of the week is going to be Pat Fryermuth, and this is more matchup based. I think we're going to see the a weakened secondary attacked. For the Steelers, or the Steelers attacking the Patriots more on the outside. New England has always been one of the better defenses at guarding a tight end. It wasn't really until late in the game that we saw Pat Fryermuth really become involved. I think that there's a chance that we get like a 4 for 42 from Pat Fryermuth, and it's crazy that with the way that the tight end landscape is right now, 4 for 42 is okay,
Yeah.
but I just don't see the upside this week for Fryermuth.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think if you play them, sure, go ahead, but don't expect much.
yeah, yeah. Again, it's going to be tough for you to find a waiver wire option that is more safe than someone like a Fryermuth. But there is one that I particularly like as a sleeper. We'll get into. So right now, again, we are going into our last segment of the show. If you have any questions, lineup questions, send them in through the comments. Tweet them to us. We will get to them live on air. All right, sleeper quarterbacks. Who you got?
My sleeper quarterback for this week, I'm gonna go with Carson Wentz. I mean, he did have a couple of turnovers, I think, last week against Jacksonville, but for the most part, it was still kind of a for his standards, it might have been a clean game. Um, so obviously, you have Terry McLaurin there. He found Juwan Johnson for a couple of touchdowns last week. There's a nice plethora of wide receivers that he has, and then obviously in the backfield you got Antonio Gibson. J.D. McKissick is a nice little third down back. So as long as he has protection and he makes the right reads, I think he can have another pretty decent game like he had last week against Jacksonville. He can have another one again against Detroit.
I'm gonna go with Jameis Winston. With the Saints taking on the Bucks. The Saints have seemed to always have Tom Brady's number since he's come down to Tampa. Brady's 0-4 against the Saints, 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. This is a game that isn't going to get away from either team. I can see this being a really close game throughout. But there's no Alvin Kamara, which means the starting running back is going to be Mark Ingram. And how much can you really rely on Mark Ingram? Then you got Tony Jones Jr. Again, there just isn't a whole lot that they're going to be able to rely on in the backfield in New Orleans. I can easily see this being a game where they say, where what we used to see in Tampa Bay, where Bruce Arians would just tell Jameis, go chuck it. go chuck the ball. He's got. We saw the reemergence of Michael Thomas. Jarvis Landry was his same old efficient self, especially in a PPR setting. Chris Olave may be the guy that gets his this week. And then we even saw, and oh my God, I hate those damn Taysom Hill gadget plays. Come on
Oh
already.
man,
Give the points to somebody who's really deserving of it. But I
please.
mean, Juwan Johnson, I think, is also a decent DFS play this week because he's going to be really cheap. And I think we saw Juwan Johnson as the second or third leading target guy last week for the Saints, getting 7 of them. So, like I said, I just think this is a game where they're going to ask Jameis Winston to throw the ball 45 times. And Are we going to see some turnovers? Probably. But are we going to see a whole lot of production? Yeah, I think we are. All right, sleeper running back, who you got?
My sleeper running back, I'm going with Michael Carter. Um, I kind of thought that maybe that Brees Hall would kind of come in and kind of take away some of those touches, but as of right now, it just hasn't happened yet. So Michael Carter is still getting a pretty good bulk of like the snaps and touches out there in the backfield. Um, I I'm not like expecting much, but I mean, super flex, deep fantasy league, maybe even for a DFS, you could probably go with Michael Carter, just as a small little sleeper. I don't know about getting into the end zone, but that's all I pretty much see from him this week.
Yeah, and again, when you see low point totals, such as this game, a lot of it is going to be, I think both teams are going to try and control the clock and run the ball. Brees Hall was able to get it done in the passing game last week, but it was Michael Carter that was the true, I wouldn't say workhorse, but he was the one that they relied on more than Brees Hall in the running game last week. So yeah, Michael Carter is definitely someone you can start this week. Mine is going to be Jeff Wilson for the San Francisco 49ers. I know on DraftKings he's only at 5,100, which is a tremendous savings. It's going to be no Elijah Mitchell for the foreseeable future. And yeah, I do think that could mean an uptick in carries for Debo. But we've seen that every single time Jeff Wilson has received at least 60% of the snaps, at least over the last 2 years. When Jeff Wilson gets 60% of the snaps, he's a top 20 running back every single time. And I think he's going to get at least that many attempts. We saw the Broncos running backs be able to be effective both in the running game and the passing game. I think Jeff Wilson can give you some in both. And if it weren't for those two goal line fumbles, one
Yeah.
each by Gordon, one each by Javonte, and one by Javante, the running backs for the Broncos have just enormous numbers. So, fluky 1 yard line fumbles is not something you can predict every week. Jeff Wilson, someone that I think can get you cheap production. All right, running backs. Who you got?
Oh yeah,
Wide receivers. Sorry.
wide
Wide
receiver. Okay,
receivers.
okay, gotcha. So my sleeper this week for wide receiver, I'm going with Sterling Shepard. He had the big touchdown play last week against the Titans. It was good. It was just good to see him back out there on the field.
Yeah.
Actually, coming off that Achilles injury. Not sure what the status is going on with Wan'Dale Robinson. I know he was dealing with like a knee injury. Is I don't know if he's going to be, is he good to go or going to play any of the bit or
Kadarius Tony is active for the
okay.
game.
Mm-hmm.
He only saw 7 snaps last week and 2 touches. Both of them were actually he didn't get any catches. If you remember, or he had one catch, and then he had the one where he received the ball on a jet sweep, and it looked like he was going to
He's going
throw
to
the
try to
ball.
throw it, yeah.
And then he reversed field and somehow still gained like 8 yards. I mean, that was like straight up Barry Sanders stuff right there. But there's something that all of us don't know. There's something going on behind the scenes between Kadarius Tony and this coaching staff that no one else knows. Because, I mean, first of all, is he truly injured? We don't know. Because he didn't look injured on that play.
Right.
He looked like someone who was fresh, quick legs, so looking to make a good decision. And the decision to, because he had that ball and that was going to be a throw. He didn't see the opening, and a lot of times a more inexperienced wide receiver is just going to chuck it. He's just going to even chucking it out of bounds. For him to then go and do what he ended up doing on that play, I don't get it. I do think that the chance that with Wan'Dale Robinson being out, it may open the chance for more snaps for him. But the again, Sterling Shepard, definitely someone that I see having a lot of important touches in this game. Another really cheap option, Richie James, the former
Mm.
San Francisco 49er. He ended up having 5 catches for just under 80 yards last week. He
Yeah,
was
he
an
had a pretty
important
nice game.
he
Yeah.
was an important part of that offense, and I think he's going to end up running those routes that uh, they were expecting to give to Wan'Dale Robinson. So I happen to really like the Giants' passing attack this week. Shepard, Richie James, more in DFS, especially on DraftKings, because I
Yeah.
think that the with the spread that they run, it's going to be a lot of underneath, quick, get to the ball and get the ball out. So Daniel Jones, aside from that one interception in the end zone after the muff punt, Daniel Jones was pretty efficient throughout the game. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot, but he was pretty efficient. So, and again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Saquon Barkley was able to do what he did. So, if if Saquon Barkley is healthy, it's going to be better for every single piece in that offense. And yeah, Sterling Shepard is definitely someone that we've seen Daniel Jones have a lot of trust in over the first couple years. You want to hear something crazy? Sterling Shepard is the longest tenured Giant.
Wow. Wait, that's crazy.
Sterling Shepard is the
That's crazy.
longest tenured New York Giant.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. You, um, yeah. So if there's a healthy Saquon, I think we can see a lot of efficiency from this Giants offense. My wide receiver sleeper is going to be DJ Chark. I know this is we had talked about a couple times the Washington and Detroit game. The fact that both of us really like the over in this game. DJ Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get his, but if
Yeah.
there's anybody in this offense who's going to run a 9 route for a 55-yard touchdown, it's going to be DJ Chark. And his ability on those 50-50 balls, those jump balls, we saw it early on in his career in Jacksonville. Then he dealt with a bunch of injuries. He looks healthy and he looks good right now with Detroit. I really think both of us obviously think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. And again, DJ Chark on DraftKings 5,100, offering you a whole lot of savings, especially if you want to have someone like a Devonte Adams on your team. You can go after DJ Chark, and then it's like having two guys in the $7,000 range. So I really do like having that combination this week. Let's wrap it up with tight ends.
My sleeper tight end for the week, I'm going with Tyler Higby. Um, he didn't have a really good game that Thursday night against the Bills. Had a couple of drops.
Yep.
Only had 5 catches for 39 yards, but obviously he's still one of Matthew Stafford's favorite targets. He got targeted 11 times, so
Yeah,
probably outside of Cooper Kupp, he might have been the next highest targeted
he
receiver.
was.
So uh, I think, I mean, the whole Los Angeles Rams offense should probably have a bounce back game this week. This is what we call it. We call it a get right game for
Yeah.
them. Hopefully. So I wouldn't be surprised if he made his way into the end zone and kind of maybe repeat those same numbers, but maybe get a touchdown with it too.
Yeah, I think Higby was either third or fourth of all tight ends in targets last week. Think we still haven't seen the connection between Stafford and Allen Robinson. Van Jefferson is still on the mend. We haven't seen him get out onto the field yet. Yeah, Tyler Higby could easily be again the second most targeted player for the Rams this week. And I'm going to wrap it up with Kylan Granson. This is a lot of a name that is going to be very new for a lot of people. But Kylan Granson was the second most targeted player on the Indianapolis Colts last week. And he had 7 targets, only managed to reel in 3 of those. But this is now a game where the Colts are going to have to play without Michael Pittman. And they're going up against Jacksonville, not a defense that's going to scare anyone at any point. Kylan Granson is in most of my DFS lineups because of the savings that he's going to offer you. Again, because I am so big on Devonte Adams this week. Because I do have Saquon Barkley on a couple of my teams. A lot of expensive pieces, so you got to save somewhere else. And Kylan Granson, I mean, he's 2,100 on DraftKings, just absolute bottom of the barrel. And speaking of bottom of the barrel when it comes to savings, how are the Bengals the third cheapest defense of anyone on DraftKings this week? They're only 2,200. They're going up against the Cowboys. Yeah, every DraftKings lineup is just loaded with the Cincinnati Bengals.
That's wild too. You would think that would probably be a lot more higher than what it would be.
That's nuts. But that's going to wrap it up for today. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Marthani is at IM_M_. I am at rstern33. Make sure you're following Backsports Page on all social media at Backsports Page. We will be back for week 3. Make sure you are following us. And on YouTube, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button so you get notifications of when we are going live. Marthani, thanks again. We'll do this again next week.
Yes, sir. We will.
All right. Good luck, everyone. Have a great week.